And we're back with another exciting edition of Point Counterpoint.
Point Counterpoint.
With Sugar Shawn Ray. I'm your host, Bob Ciccarello. Shawn, we've got a lot of debates over the years. You and I love to mix it up. But one of the biggest debates of all time, which is the most controversial Mr. Olympia? And there's a few on the list. Everybody likes to point their finger at one, but I contend there's at least two.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was in a couple of those controversial decisions. But from the cheap seats, I would be hard-pressed to name one. I'm going to give you a couple that we should start off with.
All right, sir.
Obviously, in chronological order, we will go back to the 1980 Olympia with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's been talked about ad nauseum in Australia after a 5-year layoff.
You're only going back to 80?
I'm starting in 80. You might have something before then, but I wasn't into bodybuilding at that stage. I'm going back to 80 with Arnold.
Okay, well, all right, we'll keep it modern.
I'm going to say 1980. Of course, I'm going to bring in 1994. I was there. And then I'm going to go to 2007 with Victor Martinez and Jay Cutler. That was... We can debate that.
There's consideration.
And I'm also going to talk about the year 2001 with Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman.
Another good one. I could go back further, so it just depends on where we want to go. At the time, 1970. Now, Sergio was the reigning Olympia champ 3 years.
3 times, yes.
67, 68, 69. 70 is where Arnold comes in. Now, that at the time was controversial in that a lot of people thought Sergio actually beat Arnold at 70. So we could bring that one in, but we could keep it a little bit more modern.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't seen much footage on the 1970 Olympics. I can't find it on YouTube. I'm going to keep looking. I've heard stories from different people, but I will tell you, in 1980, I kept hearing about how horrible that Arnold looked, how lucky Arnold was. He showed up while he was in the production stages of the movie Conan. He was going to be a commentator there for, I believe, ABC.
Yeah, that's right.
And his I think one of his best men in his wedding was Paul Graham, who ultimately became the president of the Federation of Bodybuilding in Australia. Paul and Carol Graham, they ran bodybuilding in Australia, and they were very good friends for a long time. And Arnold shows up to color commentate the show and jumps in at the last minute. Now, the argument that's notoriously documented is the one with him and Mike Mincer.
Correct. Yeah.
Mike Mincer wanted to protest. I know that Boyer Coe was very vocal about not allowing Arnold in at the last minute. Yeah. A lot of guys didn't want him there because he'd already had 6 Mr. Olympia titles to his credit. But no one knew what Arnold looked like. They knew he was training for the movie and the comeback. Right. Then he unveiled his physique. A little bit emaciated. The legs are the first things to go because he certainly didn't have the mass. But he still had that towering height. I believe him and Ken Waller are the two biggest guys on the stage. And Mike Mincer notoriously was in 5th place. Yeah. A lot of people don't even know who second place was, but they do know one thing. They don't believe that Arnold should have won that contest. And ironically, Chris Dickerson was in second place at all of 5'5", maybe 189 pounds. How is it controversial in 1980 if you're not telling me right now that Chris Dickerson should have won the show?
I don't think he wins the show. Nah. Now, listen, things have not in dispute. Listen, should he have been entered in, whatever? I'm not even going to get into all that. Listen, he was, ultimately. They were going to let him in. He's Arnold. He was a 6-time Olympian. They're not going to tell him no, okay? Right. And listen, obviously they knew he was going in. At least Weider did beforehand. So I'll take that and I'll shove it to the side. He enters the show. Now, I'm just going to go by physiques, okay? Was it the Arnold that we saw last in 1975? No. 74, arguably his best year, a lot of people would say Arnold's. 75, I thought he was tremendous in pumping iron. He wins that easy. 80. No, he's not anywhere near he was. But was he still the best? That's the question. Now,
that is the question.
Chris Dickerson is diminutive next to Arnold, okay? Again, at 5'5", maybe. Arnold at 6'1", 6'2" at the time. Listen, Arnold was 90% of what he was, but a 90% Arnold was still better than a 95% Chris Dickerson. So while he wasn't at his best, I still think he was the best on there. All the other guys had significant flaws that I didn't see him beating Arnold. Yeah,
Zane, some of the guys they just looked too small. I mean,
I think so.
I mean, they were under 190 pounds. I don't think Frank Zane broke 190.
Do you think Mincer should have placed higher?
Mike Mincer was too smooth from the back. The legs were too smooth. He had a couple of strong points. Mike Mincer poses, he looked phenomenal. Yeah. But he also looked small next to Arnold. Arnold got knocked for having no legs. Of course. His arms saved the day for him. His height saved the day. His twisting shots, they were money. Yeah. So I could, if you're not going with Arnold, tell me how you can go for Chris. I mean, Chris was on his way to becoming Mr. Olympia. It took him 2 more years. Yeah. Could have been Mr. Olympia in '81. But this was a contest that it was apples and oranges. And as controversial as they claim it was, I've studied that show.
Me too.
And I'm hard pressed to say that even Arnold off was better than all of those guys being on.
Yeah, and that's why I don't rank that as number one. Was it controversial? Of course. Listen, you can make a case. I mean, Arnold was not at his best. Yes, the legs were down. There are certain poses. I mean, you can get away with a lot of stuff back then. At least he could.
He was a master at hiding.
There was poses that he wouldn't even do.
Yes.
Like he would just refuse. Like can anybody find me a side tricep of Arnold? Think about it. Have you ever even seen a picture of us? No, because he would hate it. He would do this, with the arms. But you can't find me a picture of Arnold with his hand behind his back doing a tricep pose. He hated that pose. He didn't like it, so he just wouldn't hit it.
Even the rear lat spread. I haven't seen very many rear lat spreads.
So can you imagine Steve Weinberg being at the table and you just waving off like a pose? Like, nah, I'm not going to hit that one?
Yeah, he got away with a lot of things, and his signature poses are partly why he won that 1980 Olympia. I had mentioned to you earlier that one of the other controversial ones was in 1994. Not because I thought I was the best.
I had you winning.
I thought that I had won that show because I was the most complete. Now, mind you, it's almost like 1980 because Dorian's got me by about 5 inches in height. He's got me by about 50 pounds, 60 pounds. But he was wounded. He was injured. He came in with the torn bicep.
And I think that's the difference, Shawn, is he was torn up at that point. I mean, so there were things that just didn't look right. And you were dead on. I mean, we've had this discussion years ago and continue to this day. No, I thought you got robbed in that one. I thought you should have won. I thought you were complete. Obviously, your presentation was second to none. Dorian held his own, but he posed like machinery.
And what I was witnessing from the champion was, because at that time he was already a 3-time Mr. Olympia winner, the color was a mess. He'll tell you, if you go back and you look at it, especially prejudging, him and Lou Ferrigno, their color was just, it looked like mud.
Yeah.
In the back, it was coming underneath the arms.
Your color still the same today.
Yeah, there it is. Mine's working for me very well. But I had to say, when I go back and look over that show, I wasn't arguing that I should win. I'm just picking the champion apart. If I could pick the champ apart, there's got to be something wrong.
No, you got a great case for that one. A lot of people sense that one. 81 has got to be number one.
This contest was boycotted by several bodybuilders.
Well, yes, because
as a result of
because of 80, some of the bodybuilders decided they were going to boycott. Again, I don't know what that was going to prove, but at the time they thought it was unjust,
right?
And they were going to make their statement and not go in. Okay, and now here comes 81. So figure out, let's get back on track. And who enters? Franco Colombo. Now we hadn't seen Franco. Because he was going in the strongman. Now, we hadn't seen Franco since 76 when he goes in. And he, without argument, wins 76. No question about it. Mr. Olympia, he looked fantastic. Then he goes into the strongman stuff, which, whole nother topic for another time. But a guy who's barely 5'5" at that, competing with the strongest guys in the world and holding his own.
176 pounds.
He beats some of these guys, but he wrecks his knee, dislocates his knee in a refrigerator lift, which I've seen on tape a million times. It still makes me cringe.
It's horrible.
It's just, oof, he's stuck underneath
the knee
thing.
broke. It was ridiculous.
But he gets himself back in, and all of a sudden, boom, Franco's in 81. Here's the interesting thing. Nobody thinks Franco should have won.
No.
But everybody's got a different winner after that.
I had Danny Padilla. Winning that competition, and that's just my opinion. Now, Danny is about as small a bodybuilder that you're going to get.
5'2". His shape was unparalleled. He had the best shape of any bodybuilder. Like he could put him up in the all-time category of best shapes. His genetics were second to none.
Right.
But he was always a little soft, especially from the back.
Hamstrings.
His face was, he suffered for this show.
Yeah.
And he comes in and he's spot on. By the way, you had Danny in first. I had him in first. You know who was the only judge to have him in first on the panel at the 81 Olympia?
Who's that?
Jim Mannion.
Interesting.
Jim Manion's the only one to give Danny a first place vote on the 81 Olympia. The other judges variously had him anywhere from fifth, where he ended up.
Yeah, and we got to give our hats off to Franco for just coming back anyways, and the judges were very generous to the late Franco Colombo, who, by the way, passed away a year ago.
Yeah, we lost Franco. And
a year ago last summer.
He was a great champ. I mean, obviously, he's going to take some heat for this
Worldwide chiropractor. I mean, he worked on, when I went to his celebration of life, you find out a lot about a person. And man, Franco lived a rich life, man. He changed a lot of people's lives and helped people become better athletes, and that whole knee injury had to happen for him to get into that chiropractic world.
I had the pleasure of having Franco on the panels with us. I do that Sunday seminar with Arnold for the last, 7-8 years now. And the last few, we've had Franco on there. Mm-hmm. And anytime you get Arnold and Franco
it's
together. Comedy gold, bro.
Forget about it.
Oh, they would rip on each other. Yeah. Arnold would imitate Franco, and Franco would try to imitate Arnold. And their stories were legendary, bro. They
have a lot of history.
Oh, they had such a friendship that went so far back.
Arnold said when he was invited to America, he wasn't coming unless he could bring his friend Franco.
That was the deal.
And that was the
he told Joe he needed Franco. And Joe brought Franco over, and they obviously, the rest is history. Moving on with the timeline.
Yes.
Do you put 89 into the controversy list?
I do. Listen, I believe firmly to this day, and I witnessed all of these Olympias from 1984 when we graduated high school, when Lee Haney won his first Olympia, to his last Olympia in 1991, that he was not even challenged for first place.
So you didn't have Labrada challenging him in his last Olympia?
I absolutely do not. I have Labrada in 1990 in third, and I'm in second.
Oh.
In 1989, I was sitting there in Rimini, Italy on my birthday in 1989, and Labrada looked pretty much his all-time best. Yeah. Lee Haney just is, again, head and shoulders. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Chris Dickerson.
So you thought Haney still had enough?
As soon as Lee Haney did his back lat spread, Labrada just was on the wrong.
Now that wasn't Haney's best, but think it was still.
I thought Haney's best was actually 1991, his final Olympia at 31 years old. He went out undefeated
against Dorian with the curly long hair in the back.
But I was there in 1989, and it's a different perspective sitting in the audience because the previous year I was on stage with him in 1988, had a nice front row seat to that. But sitting in the audience, looking at those two individuals, you could see why Lee Haney was Mr. Olympia. Yeah. He just exploited the smallness of Labrada and the thinness of Labrada's muscle mass. Lee Haney was just in another league.
Right,
I don't think Lee Haney was ever challenged. Arguably in 1990, Lee was at his worst, but everybody else were too.
So we'll put him in the same category as Arnold winning in 80. He might not have been his best, but he was still the best there.
Yeah, for that year, 1989.
We don't get a controversy until 94. We already discussed this, but a lot of people had you winning. I had you winning. Dorian off his mark. Again, some torn body parts, not quite flowing the color. You were polished, you were in condition. I mean, all the parts. If you were going to win an Olympia, that was going to be it.
That's what I thought,
we don't get really the late 90s, I think. I mean, you can make a case for a LEVRONE, in there somewhere again.
Probably, maybe in 2000 at the best.
I don't think it's a big controversy as much as it's people can. Everybody's got their favorites. You know what I mean?
Right.
2001, Jay Cutler shows up.
Absolutely.
And
my final Olympia.
Look out, right?
Yeah,
your final Olympia. Jay is on the money, and he's got to be winning after prejudging.
Yeah, and we have diuretic testing taking place that year, and of course all the athletes are aware of the diuretic test. This is a year that Kevin LEVRONE showed up late to the Olympic meeting.
I remember that. Yeah.
He also didn't sign his athlete's contract to compete in the Olympia. Now Kevin's not a Mr. Olympia. Everyone has to sign the contract to compete in the show.
True.
Kevin doesn't do that. Kevin not only did he not do that, he didn't even register to be an IFBB pro that year. So now he's got 2 marks against him, and he shows up at the athletes meeting late, and the entire thing comes to a screeching halt, and he gets reprimanded by none other than the Gestapo, Wayne DeMiglia. He berated Kevin in front of everyone. I mean, Kevin felt this big by the time it was over, but nonetheless, he was allowed to compete.
Yeah.
Moving forward, we get through the prejudging, and it's clear that Jay Cutler's going to beat Ronnie Coleman on condition. Ronnie's as big as he ever was.
I got Jay winning after prejudging.
Jay's actually winning on the scorecard by 6 points going into the finals.
For those who don't know, 6 points is a very big lead in bodybuilding. That's hard to overcome.
Well, not to mention we're going into the posing round, so Ronnie's not known for his posing.
Listen, and the posing round, that's a great debate for us for a future show, because that's a whole other bag of tricks. How Ronnie makes up ground in the posing round of all rounds is completely beyond me, but I got Jay winning the 2001 Olympia.
I believe everyone did except the judges, or certain judges, which is why he lost the contest. And of course, when Ronnie wound up winning the contest, Jay Cutler, I'm done with the Olympia.
I think you could make a case that 01 might have been Jay's best year. I mean,
it absolutely was.
I mean, listen, if it ain't, it's right there. I mean, he is dead on. He is dry. He's in condition. He's huge. I mean, how he loses that show.
It set him on the course to boycott the Olympia, so to speak. He went on to the Arnold Classic.
Did you have him beaten Ronnie that year?
Absolutely. I was there. I was standing right. Yeah, I was posing down with the guy. As a matter of fact, I was doing the Fox Sports.
Did you think it would go the other way?
I clearly believed that Jay was going to win. I mean, Jay was an Orange County guy. He didn't live too far away, and I love a challenge. I'm looking at history taking place. And so when I had to go in the production room and do the broadcast for Fox Sports Net, knowing the outcome, it was hard for me to stay neutral before I gave away the big reveal, which was Ronnie won the show.
listen, Jay, if there was politics involved, okay, if it's a business and we're setting things up and all that, the best move in the world would have been to have the champ dethroned.
Yeah.
It would have been the Jay, who was at that time already the people's champ. People love Jay Cutler, right?
It took another 4 years for Jay to
the underdog
knock Ronnie off.
beats Ronnie Coleman. Now you got the rubber match for the next year. That would have been what's best for business.
Best, yes.
But they didn't do that.
No.
That tells me that it was not politically motivated. There was zero to be gained from having a 4-time champ.
But they got it wrong.
Because by the time they get to the 5-year champ, they're booing him.
Yeah, they got it wrong. That year, 2001,
Agreed.
will always be controversial. And then it was only a few short years later, in 2007, that Jay would be on the other side of a controversial win over Victor, the Dominican Martinez, the Dominator. Victor from the Dominican Republic won the Nationals, I believe it was in 2003, if I'm not mistaken, or
2001, year after I turned pro. Victor won the Nationals.
And Victor showed up at this show just ridiculous. As a matter of fact, it was the same year he won the Arnold Classic in 2007, if I'm not mistaken. He showed up at that contest, and Jay, it wasn't that he beat Jay. Jay was off. And arguably going into the finals, it would look like Victor Martinez was going to win this contest, and I think it left a lot of people scratching their heads when it was over.
Well, here's what happened in my opinion, okay? Victor comes out. When Victor walks out, he's the winner. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any question.
Yeah.
He walks out and you go, whoa, Victor nailed it. Here was the problem. As the prejudging went on, round after round after round, Victor started melting.
Smaller, yeah.
He started melting. Mm-hmm. The sweat broke. And I got to say, by the end of the prejudging, I don't have Victor winning. Mm-hmm. Jay started making up a little ground. Victor started getting softer. And by the end of the prejudging, I'm like, I don't know, man. I had Victor when he first walked out, but he's fading. And through the next night, I got to be honest, like, I think it was controversial in the fact that I had him winning at first. Mm-hmm. But you know the game, Shawn. You got to not only maintain during the prejudging, but through the next day.
Yeah, and what I think saved Jay was, you couldn't get past those quads. You couldn't get around those calves. And when he was up there posing, he's not the best poser, but he looked a whole lot more confident than Victor did in that posing round. And he looked like he was fighting for his life. And whereas Victor seemed to be kind of like just real chill. You didn't sense urgency.
You don't know anybody more chill than Victor.
And then that's where he lost the show, I think. It was Jay's persona that actually turned the corner for him because he'd been there
Jay
before.
knew he had to fight for the title, and I think he got better as he went. And Victor, I think, probably there was enough birds in his ear that he probably knew, I'm on the fence here, you know what I mean? Well, you started off strong, but, you kind of catch word out there,
Yep.
So, was it controversial? I think at the start it might have been controversial, but I think at the end of the day they got it right.
Yeah.
In 07.
Does it get controversial after 07? Because in 08, we say Dexter Jackson
no controversy there.
Jay Cutler.
No, Jay's off.
Wins that.
Dexter's on. Absolutely earned it.
And Jay did the unthinkable in 2009 by coming back and recapturing the title, which had never been done in the history before.
No controversy there. Jay comes back and he's Jay again. Again, he made a mistake in 08. He didn't make a mistake in 09.
I don't think there was any controversy after that for the next 7 years.
A lot of people talk Kai Greene, but here's the thing. Kai always looked great at the Arnold, but he always was off at the Olympia. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if that's a mind thing. I don't know if it's because he's going up against Phil. The best shot he had was at the 50th. Mm-hmm. The 50th anniversary where they had the gold Sandow and all that. That was Kai's shot, man.
Is that when they almost got in a fight on stage?
He flicked his with the famous hair flick and all that. Phil's off.
Yeah.
And he knows he's off. And Kai just missed it.
So we fast forward it and we get to where Phil is about to get beat by Shawn Rhoden. Is that a controversial win?
I think it is. I think it is because, listen.
It's only controversial if you think Phil should have won.
Phil's not off, okay? His midsection.
That's enough.
Isn't good. Now, I don't know if we call that off, but physique-wise, okay? He beats Rhoden in all the shots he normally beats Rhoden. Rhoden never got a point off of Phil in all these years, okay? But Phil beats him from the back. He beats him on the side chest. He beats him in every pose except for the abdominals.
But the abdominals, I think, are factored into the side tricep.
Correct.
It's factored into the side chest. It's factored even into the back double bicep. You can see it from the protrusion from the side.
Yeah, it's true.
Phil lost that contest. Shawn actually winds up winning. So after that, we move into the following year, and we're dealing with Brandon Curry, the arrival of Brandon Curry. Was that controversial at all? I don't think it was.
No, listen, Brandon earned that. You can't really make a case for anybody else. Everybody's got their faults. We all know that. But overall, which is what the Olympia is, okay? It's all things considered. Mm-hmm. Brandon had the best of everything's considered. He had the size, he had the shape, he had the proportion. I mean, his proportions are freaky. If you ever see Brandon in person, you can see, like this, his arms to his waist. He brought the legs up over the years. I think Brandon wins legit. I don't think we take that away from him. No.
Moving into December, coming up real fast. December, I just said that it's going to be like bam.
Now, this will be interesting because we don't know exactly yet who's showing up.
We do know there's going to be some surprises.
There could be some surprises coming soon. We don't know. Again, we'd like to see a Shawn Rhoden. We'd love to see a Phil Heath. Listen, I'd like to see anybody coming back. I'd love to see Kai Green. I want to see anybody who's allegedly, quote, the best bodybuilder in the world on the same stage at the same time. Dexter Jackson, obviously his last Olympia, coming up at another Olympian. How great would it be to have 3-4 Olympians on stage?
Well, we may.
But as controversy's going, we just ran through the whole gamut of the Olympia spectrum. I got to put, if I'm putting him in there, I got to put 81 number one. I don't think there was anything more controversial than an off Franco winning the Olympia. I don't. If you got a bigger one, go ahead, man.
Well, I'm going to stay with 94. Go back, check it out on YouTube. That's a wrap for us here at Monday Night Muscle. Let us know your thoughts and your comments on who you think was a controversial Olympia winner or loser, for that matter. For Bob Chick, I'm Shawn Ray.